And now we're delighted to have with us our guest of honor for this evening, the Minister of Youth and Sports Malaysia, Yamaluddin'S.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And a very good evening to all of you. First of all, I'd like to recognize the presence of Mr. Richard Stengel, the Under-Secretary of State for Public Diplomacy and Public Affairs from the United States State Department, who is with here tonight. His Excellency Dr. Mochdan, the Deputy Secretary General of ASEAN for Community and Corporate Affairs. Your Excellency, Ambassador Joseph Yun, thank you for those kind words. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I am tremendously delighted to be here tonight to join all of you, 103 young leaders from ASEAN. And Malaysia is extremely proud to be the host for Yseali's inaugural training program. And I'd also like to record my government's appreciation to President Barack Obama for the exemplary level of commitment demonstrated by himself and his administration in support of ASEAN youth. As all of you know, tomorrow, as Ambassador Joseph Yun said earlier, Malaysia will receive President Obama for his state visit to Malaysia. And this visit is made 1 year before ASEAN ushers in what is known as the ASEAN community. In 2015, next year, when Malaysia plays host to the ASEAN summit, we will usher in what is the first step towards a more united ASEAN. The belief that the whole of ASEAN is greater than the sum of its parts. That together we can achieve much, much more than what we have achieved over the last 30 years and by ourselves. And one of the most important elements and foundations of the ASEAN community is for people-to-people interaction, people-to-people engagement, for us to have that sense of belonging within ASEAN, to recognize that this is a region for us to chart our common destiny together. One of the greatest challenges that we face in ASEAN is the fact that this consciousness that we belong to a greater group, ASEAN, is still extremely low, especially amongst young people. It is therefore incumbent upon all governments, and of course my ministry, we've been doing our part in trying to raise the level of awareness among young people in Malaysia, that we have this shared common destiny, and whether we realize it or not, we in fact have this shared common history in which we preserve the peace in this region for many, many years. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we celebrate young people in ASEAN. Governments around the world have a difficult time thinking about with young people. Young people, especially the Gen Y today, the Gen X before them, have extremely different expectations, perhaps to the generation before them. Of course, as Ambassador Yun said earlier, their concerns are immediate. Their concerns are about jobs, about economic security, about what they do after they graduate. At the same time, the sort of expectations they have are completely different as well. Instant gratification, immediate results. Information nowadays flows much freer than it did in the past. People get information not by waiting for the traditional news cycle to happen, but in real time, on Twitter, on Facebook, and on WhatsApp. And this is the generation that we have here today. And governments all around the world have to recognize that the era of government knows best is over. We have to engage with young people. We have to crowdsource ideas and also what the expectations of young people are. That's what we try to do in Malaysia. We try to engage with young people, not token engagement, not by speaking down to them, not by treating them as kids, but as partners in development. We recognize that they form an important constituent, not just politically, but also in terms of our economic security. We're still a relatively young nation, and in order to harness the competitiveness of the country, we need to be able to draw on the resources of every single Malaysian, and that means drawing on the resources of our young people in Malaysia. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to congratulate Dash and StartupMalaysia.org for organizing this workshop in partnership with the US State Department. As a country in transition towards becoming an advanced nation, Malaysia regards entrepreneurial development as an indispensable facet in our plans, and StartupMalaysia.org has an important role to play. It's not an easy thing to organize this event, such a scale and such an importance on the eve of President Obama's visit, and I believe that we'll see more great things from Dash and Startup Malaysia in the future. We're honored to host all of you from across ASEAN to be with us over the next few years as we empower the ASEAN generation to work on projects that will hopefully make a difference in their communities in the areas of education, environment, civic engagement, and economic development. And I think that's the great difference and the great thing that differentiates Yseali from many other youth conferences, in that there's a premium placed on community projects, leaving behind a solid legacy of action and not just discussion and not just talking. Malaysia's own strategic roadmap includes the inclusion of youth leadership and youth leadership development, and Yseali's ambitions, which is to strengthen engagement between young leaders across the region, corresponds perfectly with our own vision. I believe that your workshop will help our own young leaders, Malaysians who are here today, approach issues existing within our own borders with a better perspective, more cosmopolitan, open, again perspective, and help strengthen the lines of cooperation between our countries as we head into an ASEAN community. I understand that this workshop also encourages young people to work on projects that won't only have an impact on their communities, but also across the region. These projects aim to solve challenges that are common across Southeast Asia, as opposed to ones that solely exist within our own national borders. I believe that this is the way forward in nurturing a better understanding between ASEAN neighbors in the future, as young leaders in this room connect and collaborate in their rise to become the next generation's leaders in our region. In the days to come, you will all find that many of the issues within our countries are similar, from our economic challenges to problems regarding crime, poverty, social ills, trans-border issues, the environment. There will be many opportunities to share solutions, and I hope that the participants here understand that the talks that you will have during the workshop could one day be actualized into regional frameworks, as you will, in the end, hopefully go on to lead your respective governments. The importance of this initiative is to give opportunities and facilitate the growth of potential leaders who may not have ordinarily have the means and access to resources and training on their own. Access to opportunities like this will help you turn your ideas into sustainable action. Ladies and gentlemen, today's young people are increasingly thinking on a more global scale, and the advent of social media is making the world smaller. Bearing this in mind, the ASEAN countries with a combined population exceeding 600 million people needs to take a more regional perspective of our opportunities and challenges and work together to find common ground that can address common problems with common solutions. Just imagine this. ASEAN saw a pre-crisis average growth of 6%. That's 6% without us working collectively like we will after we usher in the ASEAN community. Imagine what would happen if we did. Imagine what would happen if young people from all across Southeast Asia work together to solve the biggest challenges that we see in our region today. We might be a small cluster of nations in a small part of the world, but collectively we pack a punch far greater than the sum of our parts. And I think that's one of the reasons why the President is coming to Malaysia and to Southeast Asia this week. Ladies and gentlemen, we often talk about young people being obsessed by their immediate needs, by their immediate concerns, by finding a job, what Joe said earlier. This is absolutely true. But I believe that young people always, when you challenge them, when you challenge young people in many different times in history, different generations, they always rise with solutions that go beyond their immediate concerns. They're burning with that sense of idealism, that flame to want to change and make this world a better place. Bobby Kennedy once said, "Some people see things as they are and ask why. I dream of things that never were and ask why not." That's what young people need to continue to ask. How can I make this place a better region? How can I make ASEAN better? How can we bring people together? And how can we realize the potential of ASEAN? I hope that you'll have a wonderful stay in Malaysia, a fruitful workshop, and think about the future of ASEAN together. Thank you very much.